Yo, yo, Chatter's cooking. What the hell? So true. So one person we haven't talked about in a little while has been Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. Last thing I heard about him is that he was making a music video. Yes, he made another song, different from the original song that he made, calling Justin Trudeau evil and ruining Canada and making it into a fascist dictator Trudeau state. He was going to change the name to Trudeauia. That's what I've heard. That's the last thing I've heard from him, right? We ain't watching that music video, at least not today, unless somebody pays like some big bucks or something and then forces me to watch it. Outside of that, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. I know Christmas is coming. I hope you all had a happy Halloween. With that being said, I want to take a look at something even scarier than Halloween, and that's the war between Israel and Gaza, claimed to be the war between Israel and Hamas. When this happened on October the 7th, Jordan B. Peterson tweeted out, "Give him hell, Netanyahu, enough is enough." So basically this is just saying, Netanyahu, do whatever you have to do. Enough is enough. This was obviously taken in assumptions by many people of them doing whatever he wants to do or whatever he thinks he needs to do. He works for people like Jordan, like Ben Shapiro, who's actively calling for just like the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. So that wouldn't be surprising to me. And even this being left up to interpretation is obviously also his fault. So he would get in trouble for this as well because he's a talking head. His job is literally to talk, and if he leaves open a lot of interpretation room for the things that he says and he gets in trouble for that, that's his fault. It's literally his job to talk. He could have stopped this situation, but he didn't. And so this got a lot of people obviously upset, as it happens, especially as time has gone on and it's moved less out of the realm of a war of defense and more into a war of like ethnic cleansing, bombing hospitals and schools, and a lot of things along those lines. We talked about the refugee camps that got bombed the other day, and many movements inside of the West Bank and across the region that has taken a toll on the lives of Palestinians, whether or not they're involved with Hamas or not. This has led to Jordan Peterson having a massive backlash against his more religious and specifically Muslim audience, in people who are anti-Zionist that have seen his takes and have started to come out against him. And so there are lots of videos coming out now about people who used to be Jordan Peterson fans or purported to be Jordan Peterson fans or like Jordan Peterson, who are like, this guy, he can't be taken seriously and he needs to be stopped. And I want to take a look at some of that stuff here. This is the Muslim Lantern, obviously a Muslim channel that talked about Jordan Peterson here.
Now, speaking of deception, now we want to talk about this crybaby. We want to talk about this man-child named Jordan Peterson, who cries whenever any topic is mentioned, whether that topic is sad or not sad. Whenever he hears anything, he starts crying like a crybaby. Now,
crazy. He's actually roasting him. Also, can somebody inform me, what are these books? Quran and Hadith, probably. Thank you, appreciate it. We'll touch on this a little bit more later, but I want to talk about this as well. Dr. Yasir Qadhi slams Jordan Peterson over Israel.
Jordan Peterson has tweeted to Netanyahu, "Give him hell," advocating violence against the Palestinians. What is your response to Jordan Peterson and the like?
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, قَدْ بَدَتِ الْبَغْضَاءُ مِنْ أَفْوَاهِهِمْ وَمَا تُخْفِي صُدُورُهُمْ أَكْبَرُ. Hatred has appeared from their tongues, and the hatred that their hearts conceal is even more so. This is a person that I have been seeing his videos on and off. There's no doubt there's some issues that are positive, but I have always found him to be an ardent supporter of Zionism against our Palestinian brothers and sisters, and this has shown clearly from the very beginning. This recent tweet of his once again indicates that not just him, but overall, so many of our politicians, so many of our pseudo-philosophers, they're looking at this entire reality from an extremely skewed narrative. How can one ignore 80 years of oppression? How can one ignore 80 years of colonization? How can one ignore 80 years of direct taking over of the lands and the peoples? People that are not even Muslim, Nelson Mandela and others have mentioned that the Palestinians have been treated at times worse than, Nelson Mandela says, some policies worse than the South Africans were treated under the apartheid regime. How can we ignore this reality? And then when Palestinians attack back, what their oppression has been is ignored, and that one attack is highlighted.
So I want to touch on this for a second, because this is something that Jordan Peterson talks about, and I think it's remarkable. So he's completely right in the sense of the years, the decades, almost 100 years of the stealing of lands and the killing of people attached to those lands for a colonialist project set in motion by the British and allowed to continue by the UN and funded by the US. With all this being said, Jordan Peterson, in the small box that his brain resides in, was only able to come up with the idea of, listen, this is just like that oppressor-oppressed thing. You know that same ideology that they use to talk about like trans people and black people in the United States? When they're like, oh yeah, black people don't even have any real structural problems when it comes to getting ahead in life. He used that same exact logic for the war in Gaza. It's so weird. It's like him saying the word postmodernist in this situation. Like, I don't know if he's capable of expanding his ideas past like internet squabbles. This is the case of being this is the case of being like way too online. He just lost connection with reality. Oppressor and oppressed narrative playing out in Israel-Hamas war.
Message very much needs to be heard now, because what makes me worried more is at the same time that freedom is being under assault internally in the West, the censorship, etc., we see powerful countries that are authoritarian coming together in an alliance to challenge the West. You've got China, you've got Russia, Iran and North Korea. I mean, just last week, the Hamas terrorist group that attacked Israel sent a delegation to talk to Russia. Iran sent a delegation there too. You see them coming together. And meanwhile, in the West, you see protesters supporting the Hamas war on Israel. You had I don't know how many were in London, as you're gathering together for this conference, 100,000 or something, crowding.
Actually, what he's talking about is the rally that had 500,000 people in it, and it was not pro-Hamas. It was actually pro-Palestinians being bombed.
The London Bridge, etc. It's just frightening. There's protests too against saving Ukraine.
It's frightening that people care about children being bombed. It just seems
a weak commitment to freedom inside the West, just when it's being threatened by countries that are enemies of freedom.
Well, what we're seeing play out to some degree is the continued manifestation of the oppressor-oppressed narrative that's so characteristic of the totalitarian left. And in its latest guise, it's the Palestinians are playing the role of the unjustly oppressed. And once
he actually can't expand his own ideology over like outside of internet squabbles between like YouTubers and random people in his comment section. I don't believe he can do it. And I think the shock that he's going to express, we'll see later, about people being mad at his take, and it being just so universal from many different directions, is kind of proof of that. I just don't think he's ever been in a situation, because he's always been coddled by the right in this country and by weird normies for his apparently like common sense takes on like trans people and having some bad interviews that he like epically owned interviewers in, right? In his lies to the Canadian government about what Bill C-16 would do. He's been coddled ever since then. And so this is one of the only times where he's just been routinely kind of universally dunked on for some of his takes that he's made. And I just genuinely think that he's never experienced it before. He does not know what's going on. He's out of his depth. He's been way out of his depth for a really long time. But he's really out of his depth now. And like the charlatan inside of him is really starting to break. It's quite interesting. Like saying that Palestinians are playing the role. Playing the role of the oppressed? You mean people who are being bombed like fish in a barrel? Like, I guess that's playing the role of oppressed, but they are also actually literally oppressed. So
once you accept that story, well, it's easy to get your back up about it, and there are reasons for that. But I would say at the same time, a lot of the pretensions of the authoritarian left have been stripped away in the last month. institutions like Harvard have taken what might be permanent stains on their reputation as a consequence of being a little bit too ideological in their approach. And then I would also say, you could also view the current conflict that's emerging in the Middle East as the last gasp of the totalitarian dictators, even in the Islamic world, because my sense is that, and I believe this to be the case, that Iran fueling Hamas did that out of desperation because they know that peace is about to break through with the Abraham Accords. And it isn't obvious to me that the countries that signed the Abraham Accords, making peace with Israel, are going to retreat from that, even in the face of these large-scale public demonstrations. I don't think Iran is going to be successful in its attempts to manipulate the Arab world back into permanent enmity with the Jews in Israel and with the Western world. Now,
okay, here's the thing. It's quite interesting. Here's the thing. In many ways, Iran is already winning that war. If we take one of the stated reasons for why Hamas broke the ceasefire in Israel, being that they wanted to help stifle normalization between Israel and the rest of like the Arab world and the Middle East and everything and other nations, they've succeeded, right? All they needed to do was get Israel to act, and then they succeeded. The thing is that Israel hasn't had to do anything really big in a long time, or had like the wherewithal to do anything really big in a long time. So the status quo human suffering going on in the open air prison that is Gaza and the slow genocidal takeover of the West Bank is violence that's slow and grinding. And that's violence that people like Jordan Peterson and like many liberals and many other people are just perfectly fine with, because one of the really big reasons is because it's really easy to not. And one of the big reasons is because it's really easy to forget about. It's easy to forget about long-standing, grinding suffering. It's much harder to forget about like bombs and explosions happening. Just casual human suffering that's happening in something like Gaza and the West Bank. It's really easy to just like pretend is not happening, not think about, and be able to just turn a blind eye to. But making Israel act by provoking them to commit more war, to show their ass and show that they're perfectly happy committing an egregious amount of war crimes. And all you need to do is just have one day to commit massive crime, to do like big crimes, and then you can have Israel do like some of the biggest crimes. Then yeah, you'll win, and you'll seeing a lot of that, how normalization between Israel and other countries in the Arab world, in the region, and across and abroad has been stifled. Like Bolivia has cut diplomatic ties with Israel. Many other countries are mulling that over or pulling money from or being really cautious about it. And lots of people are being like, we don't want to continue funding Israel and their hyper religious, far right genocidal apartheid state that they're keeping to the detriment of millions of human beings that they've stolen land from. OK, so that's what we're working with right now. I don't agree with the Iranians. I think a lot of the shit that they're doing is really terrible, and funding Hamas is really, really terrible, right? Criminal, even. But if we're going to talk about just like winning a war, you can want them to not win the war, but Israel's winning the war by having no restraint at all, and also being perfectly fine bombing refugee camps and hospitals and the like.
Who knows, right? Because it's a dynamic and fluid situation. But I don't think there's any reason for despair. This could well be the last gasp of the brutal dictators. I'm not overwhelmingly naively optimistic about that, but the Abraham Accords were a major step forward, and they're not dead yet. And so I'm hoping that countries like the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Arabia who would have signed the Abraham Accords if they would have been approached properly, let's say by the Biden administration 2 years ago, I think they may still be on board. I think that's possibly still salvageable. And so there's room for hope even on that side of the equation.
Well, that's true. The United Arab...
Well, the thing is, like, the more Israel bombs schools and hospitals and refugee camps, the harder it is to make those accords possible. And that was Hamas's goal. And Israel's playing right into like terrorist hands by being a terrorist state. So there's that from Jordan. On top of, I want to return to Dr. Yassir on this issue before we talk a little bit more about a recent interview that he did with Piers Morgan. Jordan Peterson, that is.
So the reality is that this type of one-sided reporting and this type of narrative in which only one side is perceived as the victim and the other side is completely ignored, it is about time we demolish this narrative. Let us take a look at the full picture. Fact of the matter is that our Palestinian brothers and sisters, their land, their lives, their peoples have been taken over for 3 generations. For how long will they remain like this? The world has been completely ignoring their plight. I have visited that land multiple times. I've interacted with the Palestinians. Why is there a Palestinian diaspora around the world? Over 10 million Palestinians are scattered around the world. Their ancestors have keys to their homes. How come nobody looks at them? Nobody sees their stories. Nobody sees that Gaza is the largest open-air prison in the world. Do you know who said this? Our own President Jimmy Carter of America.
This is true. This is very true. With that being said, Jordan Peterson then went on to Piers Morgan a day ago to talk about some of these issues and to reflect on his "Give 'em hell" tweet. Let's take a look.
October the 7th, you tweeted, "Give them hell, Netanyahu, enough is enough," and you got...
That is true. So I would ask Jordan Peterson, are Gazans living in hell yet? Is that a big enough hell for you? Is watching entire generations and bloodlines being wiped off the face of the earth, is that hell enough for you? I just wanted to know. Is it close to hell on earth enough, or do things need to get worse? Is being systematically taken from your home and tortured in the West Bank, is that hell enough, or does it need to get worse? I just want to know.
Got some blowback for that, as everybody
a lot.
says anything about this. Were you surprised by the scale of the blowback? Do you wish you'd phrased that tweet differently? Do you have any regrets about it?
Well, you know, Twitter is a very complicated social media platform, and it's been difficult for me to learn how to use it wisely.
And apparently the idea about the best way to get good at something is to fail and fail fast. Apparently that's his goal with Twitter, because this guy literally tweets every hour, multiple times an hour, for all of his waking hours. It kind of blows my mind how this man has time for his family or anything, or to have a job or do interviews with the amount of time this man tweets. It wouldn't shock me right now if he's tweeting at the moment, if they would zoom out and he has his phone in his hand and every time he looks down he's taking a look at his keyboard or looking for something else to retweet. It would not shock me at all at this point in time. He's so weird.
And I'm not alone in that, because it's difficult to be wise on Twitter. Now, what I'm trying to learn is when a tweet is appropriate and when a long-form commentary is appropriate. And the rule, I think, is something like the higher the stakes, the more likely that the long-form commentary is necessary. And really,
the more important something is that I'm talking about, the more I should probably actually talk about it and not write weird tweets about it. You know what? At least he's learning.
It would have been better had because I did release a YouTube video where I explained some of what we already talked about.
I saw it,
and that was received much better, let's put it that way, but it also gave me a chance to elaborate my argument. And so what it highlighted for me, and I felt, I was very
Does he start crying
taken
any minute
aback
now?
by what happened in Israel. And I was also appalled because in my estimation it was unnecessary. As I said, the Abraham Accords could have been extended earlier, and maybe this wouldn't have been necessary. And so I allowed myself to express some sentiment at that point without providing context, and that wasn't as good as providing the context. And I'm rethinking Twitter overall at the moment about how to use it. Elon has taken off the character limit, and he's also made it possible.
He's just yapping about how, well, it's really hard to use Twitter and I don't know how to use Twitter correctly yet, so I'll just say really inflammatory things and then just disappear and not elaborate, and people getting mad at me. Well, listen, it's just like a problem with the platform, guys. Not me, I promise.
To distribute video, and so it no longer has to be a place where impulsive exchanges can occur rapidly. And I'm trying to reconfigure how I use it. I'm much happier with the video. Now, you know, I was upset because I had developed somewhat of a Muslim following on YouTube, and I was very happy about that. A lot of people on the Islamic side of the world were watching my biblical lectures, for example, and you know, and I've had extensive conversations with Muslims on my YouTube channel, and you know, I burnt some of that up, and I'm not sure I did that. Well, I would say I'm certain I didn't do that in the most productive manner, and so do I regret it? It would have been better to do the long form, to have done the long form to begin with, you know? And Twitter invites and rewards a certain amount of impulsivity, and it wasn't, I don't know, Piers, I don't know if it's ever time for impulsive action, especially when the stakes are serious, you know?
Is he just allergic to saying I'm sorry or I messed up? Or I regret the thing that I did? Is he just like so content brained at this point that he can't possibly imagine giving up the idea of him doing something wrong? So just being like, yeah, I fucked up there, I regret doing that. It has to, well, I didn't do it intentionally, or I guess I should have waited and did something else. Well, maybe if I had to do it again, I would do something. But like, do you regret it? He just wouldn't say, yes, I regret it. Yeah, it is a lot of arrogance. It's kind of wild, isn't it? The sound of self-centeredness, of never being able to simply just say, I messed up, I'm sorry, because that's what people are looking for. That's all a lot of people want, is just, I messed up, I'm sorry. But he just can't do that. He can't bring himself to just say that. So that's just how it is. You are done for a lot of us, Jordan. You pick your side. You are part of a system. Stop chewing your words. I admire this gentleman's mind. However, a simple analogy would do instead of blaming most of it on Twitter. It's Twitter's fault. How can you trust the words of a fool who doesn't even know how to use Twitter? They're cooking him in this comment section. People don't change. They just act from time to time, Mr. Peterson. In emotional situations, also actors fall to their original pattern. You won't make me forget your real face. You showed this single tweet, even by acting like a wise man and building emotional speeches, even for the rest of your life. Aren't they already in hell by being starved of food, water, and electricity? And these people are kind of cooking. They're completely cooking. They're not only cooking him, but they're cooking up some really important and meaningful talks here, because yes, it is really important to talk about these things. And yes, they are already living it. This person's saying the same thing that I did. A lot of these people were Jordan Peterson fans, like Jordan Peterson. I'm not sure if they were like hyper giga conservative or whatever, but they're people who had enjoyed his content or some of the things that he had to say. I don't. But we can come to the same agreement here that, yeah, what he's doing is ridiculous. And him making these types of tweets and agreeing with these types of things and going on and on and on about how, like, oh, I hope Israel just makes it out of this, and not worrying about the tens of thousands of Gazans who are going to die in the situation and the massive amount of ethnic cleansing and genocide that's going to be happening here if Israel gets its way. He's showing his ass. He's showing his ass, and he's showing him not understanding the situation and him just speaking from emotion there. Give him hell. Give him hell. Sure. You either die a hero, live long enough to see yourself become the villain. The thing that this poor chatter doesn't understand is that Jordan Peterson was always the villain. I expected Piers to cut him off and badger him with, do you regret this, yes or no, allowing him to explain. But then I remember that Jordan Peterson wasn't Palestinian and Piers wasn't asking him to condemn Hamas attacks. Yo, this chatter's cooking. What the hell? So true. Can you imagine like a non-combative interview, like, or not super combative interview like this, not always asking him, do you condemn, do you regret, over and over and over again. It's crazy how that works out, isn't it? It's wild how this person just, you didn't care about that. That's crazy, isn't it? Don't you think? That's so peculiar. That's so strange. Wow, wowee. YouTube chat redemption arc. Actually, yeah, truly. He wasn't. He wasn't asking about Hamas. He was just asking about cultural genocide. Who could have seen this coming? One absolute cop out, pathetic, even for Jordan Peterson to blame a difficult platform. And also, I have to tell you, Twitter is one of the least difficult platforms. Facebook is more difficult than Twitter. All right. Instagram and Snapchat are more difficult than Twitter. Twitter is actually one of the most simple social media apps that you could be on outside of probably YouTube. Twitter's not complicated. He's addicted to Twitter and he needs something to blame besides himself because he's allergic to saying sorry. Poor guy doesn't know how to use Twitter. I feel so bad for him. And so this is what we're looking at. They're understanding. I'm glad that a lot of people are waking up to this man was a charlatan and this man was bad the entire time. I just hope we're able to get to the point where we understand that he was just bad the entire time. And he was never somebody to be trusted. And he was always this insane. The only thing is he just didn't say insane things about things that you cared about. And so you just didn't see it or didn't look into it. And I would imagine a lot of people don't keep up with Jordan Peterson, everything that he says. Not everybody's like us, right? I understand that situation. But with this being said, he's made no small mistake here. And him not wanting to just come out and say sorry is doing real damage. And some damage that can't be undone, especially people with family in Gaza or the Middle East to begin with, and how those people have been treated. Let's go back to this video and see what he has to say in his audience.
Now, that individual have had a series of tweets about this current issues that have been happening in Palestine, and he says that addressing Netanyahu, give them hell. Now, there's a very interesting thing that I realized when I was like reading this tweet. I was thinking to myself, isn't that individual someone who doesn't even know if he believes in a creator or not? Why is he using these terms, give them hell, if he doesn't even know if God exists or God does not exist?
Do you believe in God? And I think, okay, there's a couple of mysteries in that question.
Crazy.
God.
You all seen him in the video who's not able to, he doesn't know what the word God means, he doesn't know what the word you means. So on what basis are he using these terms? But what is even further, what is even more and more hilarious and funny is the fact that this individual has been recently on an interview and he was asked, do you believe in hellfire? And he said, I don't know. He said this is the limit, his knowledge is limited, it does not reach that place. He doesn't even know whether hellfire exists or not.
Do you believe there's a hell?
And words, and he does not even believe that hellfire exists. On what basis is he saying to Netanyahu, give them hell? That is completely absurd. Now that individual, this is the last days, this is the last years that he is upon earth. He's an old man, he's reaching the end of his life, and sooner or later God is going to take his soul.
Yeah. Bro, come on. He said, guys, don't cook him too hard. He doesn't have much time left. Look at him. Look at him. Look at his wrinkles. Look at the way he talks. He's an old man. God will remove him soon, inshallah.
Just like any other human being dies on this earth. Now that individual, when he dies, he will realize that actually hell is a real place. And I'm giving him glad tidings that that place will be prepared for him. As that place is prepared for the people of injustice. It is prepared for the people who want innocent civilians to be killed, who want people to be further oppressed, who is telling a government who has a military to attack and completely kill innocent civilians who have no weapons, who have no army, who cannot defend themselves. Now, hellfire is a real place, and it is waiting for you when you reach the end of your life. You will realize.
Holy, he's going so hard. Yeah, I mean, I have to say the same thing. Everybody who supports this type of stuff, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah, God will give you hell. That's really it. I mean, this strikes a real nerve. Saying give them hell, dude. Palestinians have been living in hell for 80 years and even beyond that. With other conquests that's happened. There's just been a people that's been consistently oppressed upon. Honestly, at least in the modern era, not too dissimilar from Jewish people and Jews to begin with. Really, if I'm going to be honest with you, as a Christian, I believe that Palestinians have been oppressed by the state of Israel for a long time. I feel for them. May God bless them. Ya Allah, please accept our duas for the victims of Palestine, ease their suffering and enable us to help them as much as we can. Ameen. Yeah, may God help them. Just people being like, please help these people. Some people even speaking Arabic. Praise praying for Palestine. Yeah, all of this type of stuff. And these people are they're losing Jordan Peterson. Well, Jordan Peterson's losing them. Remember how he said, "Oh, I regret I regret that like I built up a large Muslim following and I regret that because I burned that in a bad way." My question is, did he regret that because he lost money and viewership from people who were in the Muslim world who liked this content? Or did he really regret it because he said and did something wrong? Considering that he doesn't even want to commit to saying that he's wrong, I'm not sure how true that really is, if I'm going to be honest with you. So I guess we're just going to have to find out one day. When? I don't know. But I don't know if he's going to be talking more on this. I don't know if he's going to finally get over himself and finally say something about it. But I'm glad that he's done something to finally make people wake up to the type of guy and the type of fraud that he is. Because that's all he is, a fraud. And it's sad. That's exactly what it is. And I'm glad people are starting to understand that. Jordan Peterson has lost many of his Muslim friends and viewers because he deserves to. I'm surprised they weren't they weren't like thinking that he was going to do or say something like that for a while, since he's literally working for ban Jews love to build, Arabs love to bomb shit and live in open sewage Shapiro. Genocide ban. Benocide. Yeah, there you go. Benocide Shapiro. I'm just surprised they didn't know then, but I'm glad they do now. Fuck this guy. The worst times brings out the real us. I guess that's it. That's the real him. Nasty looking, ain't it? What is this video? Is this the video that it is? Wait, is this the video that he made? I didn't even conceive of it. Why I'm pro-Muslim but anti-thug? Bro, what? That's really how you want to frame this? Oh, now I see why all of these people hate him. There it is. Those fucking thugs. Yo, is the thug dog whistle starting to expand from black people and now to other minorities? That's crazy. I've seen and heard enough from Jordan Peterson to know he was not referring to all Muslims, but just Hamas. But people are looking for division. Absolutely brilliant speech. As a Jew, I stand with our Muslim sisters and brothers. Very much, Jordan Peterson, for explaining that you are also anti-thug. Smart people will make a difference. Along with Thomas Sowell, the words of Jordan Peterson were taught in schools. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people here. I don't see many people being like, I'm Muslim. I just see a lot of people. There's one person who said they're Jewish specifically. There's one person that said he's Iranian born. I think this is what he means by the comment section of his own video being much sweeter to him. Oh, one more thing that we have to check. Yo, can anybody see the like to dislike ratio? I don't have a like to dislike ratio thing. Wait, take a look.
Hello, everyone.
Whoo! I mean, I guess you can call that positively received. Wait a second. Now looking at the dislike ratio, it does not comport to the amount of people that I see in the comment section glazing him. This is not a good like to dislike ratio. It's like 60-40. So my question is, did those comments just not make it to the top? Were they deleted? Like, what's going on here? Because everybody here is like glazing him. But the comments, but the like to dislike does not reflect that at all. You're revolving around the main point. Believe that you're smart and know that having advice. I, as a Muslim, truly appreciate your efforts trying to unify people of the book, but it's not so simple. You really need to teach yourself more about this issue if you really want to contribute to solving the problem. Well, there you go. Probably the most important pieces you have ever written. Thank you. Yo, I want to see what's with these comments. This is so strange. Do you think that they're deleting comments? Probably, possibly, or the type of comments that are being left that aren't pro Jordan Peterson are ones that get automatically deleted, because there's no possible way. You do a great Christian impersonation, Mr. Peterson. Holy shit. There's no way you have 21,000 dislikes on this video, but nobody's saying it. Okay. All right, Mr. Peterson. Sure, I bet. Probably IDF bots. It's possible. It's possible. Well, there you go. Jordan Peterson has lost his Muslim fan base in many ways. I'm glad that they finally woken up to what's going on there. So weird. Come here. Come here. Oh. Hi. Oh, sorry. I didn't see you there. If you're enjoying the content, hit the subscribe button. If you don't, it'll make Boo very sad. I know a bunch of you who are watching are not subscribed. Join the frenzy. You won't regret it. Thank you, Boo.